Hey everyone, I'm Alan Locher. Welcome to the Locher Room on this Wednesday afternoon. Tony Award winning actress Dinah Manoff is known to movie audiences around the world for her role as one of the Pink Ladies, Marty Marachino, in my favorite movie musical of all time, Grease. Last week, she released her first novel, The Real Hollywood Story of Jackie Gold. Manoff's other film credits include Ordinary People, Bloodhounds of Broadway, Child's Play, Staying Together, Backfire, I Ought to Be in Pictures, Welcome Home, Roxy Carmichael, and the independent film Bart Got a Room. She made her television debut on the 1970s sitcom Welcome Back Kotter and went on to star as a series regular on one of the funniest ABC comedies, Soap. Manoff has appeared in numerous television movies, including Maid For Other, which she wrote the story for as well. On television, she is known for her portrayal as Richard Mulligans' daughter, Carol Weston, a character she played for 7 years on Empty Nest. She went on to star in the highly acclaimed ABC Family series State of Grace, which she received a Jewish Image Award. She won the Theater World and Tony Award as Best Featured Actress for her performance in the Broadway production of Neil Simon's I Ought to Be in Pictures. She reprised that role in the motion picture of the same title. Manoff has also worked as a television director. She was born in New York City and is the daughter of Academy Award winning actress Lee Grant and writer Arnold Manoff. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Locher Room Tony Award winner Dinah Manoff. Did I get that all right?
Boy, I guess so. I don't know. As I get older, it gets longer. So there's a lot there.
Yeah. That's so funny. Oh wow, one of our fans, Freeman, just said this morning, I watched her Tony Award acceptance speech. She wore a bow tie and thanked Ron Liebman, Joyce Van Patten, Neil Simon, and Herbert Ross. Wow.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Don't you love that these things, are always, people can find them and watch it every time.
Yeah, and a little piece of trivia, my date was Bruce Willis.
Oh, wow.
I know, that's just a little dish to start off with.
Was a friend dating?
Yeah, it was in his bartender days. It was not, I always got them on the way up.
Before he was Bruce Willis.
Yeah, when he was Bruno.
That is so funny. I told you backstage that I had the incredible pleasure of talking to your mom this past Friday. And I asked her about your new book. And she told me exactly how she felt. And it's so effing great was her response. But not as a mother, she wanted to point out, but as a reader. Yeah. So last week, you released your first novel. What was that like? The Real Hollywood Story of Jackie Gold.
Well, the release experience is still releasing. We had 2 readings here where I live near Seattle, and it was really fun and incredible. And for me, this is my dream come true. I mean, I've had other dreams come true, like my children and my husband, and some acting things, but this was like, wow, if I could have that happen, I'd feel pretty darn good about it. And so it's been really exciting for me to and scary because I feel exposed and here it is and I'm not hiding out, and but mostly good, and I get to talk about it and hopefully people will enjoy it. So far the feedback I've gotten has been just amazing.
Well, that's terrific. And I love that you say it was your dream. I mean, I know your father is a famous writer. I mean, when did writing become something that you dreamt about, becoming?
Well, I always wrote. I mean, I've always wrote from the time I was little. But when I was a teenager, I used to write really angry poetry directed at my mother. And she always applauded it, even if it was just about how horrible a person I thought she was. And, I really am grateful for that because there was never like a this is off limits topic. It was like, express yourself, we'll fight later, but, I like the prose. So.
Was it just something you picked up, took your pen to paper early on?
I think so. I think it was just a way of, getting feelings and emotions out as it still is, to some degree. with Jackie Gold, the novel, I really felt I had a story to tell, and I felt compelled to tell this story. And it's taken me a long time to get it published, to find a publisher. And over the years, I would think, oh, just put it away. It's just, and it wouldn't let me go because I needed to tell it. So when my publisher, Myra Fiacco, called and offered me a deal, I was just stunned and grateful beyond belief because, I had never sent it out to independent publishers. I, sent it out to big agents and, gotten close and then rejected and close and then rejected. And so to me, it's like a miracle that this has happened. I'm so excited.
Well, it speaks volumes for people watching, persistence,
Yeah, I really do want to stress that to other writers. When I was writing and not being published, I was very inspired by people who had, stuck to it and finally had it happen. And I will say the most important thing for me was that I had a team of friends who just kept saying, this is really good. Don't worry. One day it's going to happen. And, and so that kept me going.
Support's the best thing. So tell us, this, you had to tell the story. Tell us about the story.
Well, Jackie Gold, who's the protagonist, is a product of a show business upbringing. She was raised in Malibu and Beverly Hills. Her father, excuse me, a little hoarse. Her father heads a major motion picture studio, and her boyfriend is people's sexiest man alive. So that's her life. She's become a superstar, and she tells.
I love it already. And I see it as a movie already too.
Well, she tells her story from her hospital bed where she's lying in a coma, having jumped off a balcony to escape the paparazzi. And that's the novel. So, it's a very fictional memoir of Jackie Gold, how she got to where she is, the drama unfolding in the hospital, secrets that are revealed. There's a lot of twists and turns. If I were to describe a genre, I would tell you it's a beach read, but a very serious beach read. It's funny, but it's also got undertones. And, for people who didn't grow up in Hollywood or show business, I think it'll shine quite a light on, this era, pre-cell phone, pre-TMZ, where the tabloids, the Inquirer and the Star magazine, they were the darker source of publicity in the town.
I just thought of this as I'm talking and hearing you tell this story. Have you, cast it in your head? Is there somebody who you see as Jackie Gold who's in Hollywood?
Oh my God. Today? I mean, there's so many amazing, someone, a friend of ours suggested Haley Kuko. Is that her name? Haley Kuko? The one who was in Kaylee Kuko. The one who was in
Big Bang?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I thought, oh yeah, she'd be great. Yeah. I don't know. I'm so out of the loop now. I live on my island. I don't know who anybody is.
How long did you, how long was it, the writing process for you?
It was on and off for many, many years. On and off for many, many years. It really started back when I still lived in Los Angeles. And I had a couple of run-ins with the tabloids, the Inquirer, and the idea of it was born out of those run-ins and what happened to Princess Diana. I really thought about, wow, what if a big star, what if the paparazzi caused this in Hollywood? What would happen? It's been a journey.
Well, they were for a while. You look at Britney Spears and
exactly. I mean, that's why I feel like this is so timely because we're talking now about look at what had just happened with the Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, where the pressure the publicity surrounding these human beings is more than anybody can bear. I mean, every pore is examined. It's too much pressure.
Having to live up to this image of who they are supposed to be.
Right.
And they are really, I mean, you're talking, the two who you mentioned are so young too, which is, a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Well,
as was Brittany when they started in on her.
100%. You're so right. Going back to your mom, what do you think? I mean, I'm sure there's
froze on me for a minute. Say again.
Oh, your mom. Going back to your mom, what do you think you learned from her about this business early on?
I learned everything from her. I learned about the ups and the downs, the pitfalls. My mother, because she was blacklisted during my childhood, always had a huge fear of not working. So, the tension in the house around getting a job, and she was the breadwinner. My parents divorced when I was very young, and then my father died. So my mother was the breadwinner. And she knew that she had a biological clock according to show business, not according to having more children, that she had until 40, to make her mark, and then it was going to go downhill after that. And I mean, I remember that as early as being, 5, 6, 7, knowing that about show business, that there was a time limit on your viability. She spent, hours in front of the makeup mirror and trying to improve herself, to look younger, to look thinner, to be better. And that was what was demanded of her as an actress. And it's still what's demanded of actresses today. They may come out and say, "Oh, I have no makeup on today," but you can bet your ass they just spent 3 hours at the gym. You know what I'm saying? I touch on those themes also in this book of what's required of being, a working actor in Hollywood, especially a working actress.
She spoke about this last Friday. I mean, incredibly. And you say you realized, 6 or 7, that's what she kept saying. But was there a moment in your childhood when you realized who your mom was as an actress, as Lee Grant, the actress?
Yeah. I when we moved to California, I was 8, and she was hired on a series called Peyton Place. And she began to get a lot of attention, Emmy nominations, and people would react to me differently. And what else? What did I want to say to you? My mother was always known as a very serious actress. If you were like to put her name with something, you go Lee Grant. Oh, she's a serious actress. And for me, back to your question about what did I learn from her. For me, I felt in big competition as a young actress with that term serious actress. I didn't know that I had what it would take to become a serious actress. Another thing that I explore in the novel. And my mother who just, she just applauds when I pour cereal these days. I mean, there's nothing, I can't do any wrong by her. But as a young actress, she was very tough on me. Very, very tough on me. And so
like advice or wanted your hair a certain way, or
everything. Extremely critical about me physically, about the work, about my work ethic. And partly with good reason. I was quite a juvenile delinquent in my late teens. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, really, we're all really glad I made it. But
make sure your kids aren't listening.
Well, we're all going to be really glad when they make it, because they're 19 now. So, my karma's come back to me big time. But she was very critical with me, and to some extent that was very good, and to some extent it made my climb very difficult because all I really wanted from her in those years was great job, keep going. So many years later, I have trained her to say, great job, keep going. And now she's just great at it.
That's really the best story. Was there
we want from our moms, right? I mean, isn't that what we want from our moms?
Yes.
Yeah, great job, keep going.
Not the criticism, not any of that. We don't want that. No, we want the good stuff. Was there a moment for you? I mean, you know, your dad was a writer, your mom was an actress, and you do both of those things. And your mom's a director and you direct. Was there any chance you'd do something different?
Nah, I was completely unqualified to do anything else. I mean, I basically dropped out of school. I was really, I subsisted on whatever talent God gave me. That was what I developed because I couldn't sit still in school. School drove me crazy. I couldn't stand it. And, it wasn't until I was well into my 30s that I thought, God, I really wish I'd gone to college because there's all this, education that I could really use to have right now, and I still feel that way. And when I'm asked, if there's anything I would do differently, it's that I would have gotten an education, I mean, I've self-educated, all my life, but now I'm ready to go to school.
Might you do it?
No.
But you're ready.
I say I'm ready. Am I really ready? No. I take Zoom watercolor classes and, I read a lot. No, I wouldn't. I still don't sit still well. I'm an interactive kind of learner. Okay.
And are the 19-year-olds going off to school?
Yes, thank God. Yes, thank you. One is going to school at Boulder, Colorado. We're taking him in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And the other one, I have twin 19-year-olds, and the other one is waiting for the borders in Japan to open up so he can go learn Japanese and be in an immersion program there.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's great.
No showbiz.
That was you had my next question. That's great. Okay. Are you fine with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, we moved out of Los Angeles 16 years ago. Oh. My husband and I had 3 little boys under the age of 8 then. Our twins were 2.5. And Dashiell was our oldest son. He was 8 then. And we moved out of Los Angeles because we felt that we wanted to be somewhere where there were other possibilities. Los Angeles, I'm sure you know, is a factory town, and the factory makes movies and television. And that's really what Los Angeles is. Everybody is in some way related to, the industry. And if you're not in that machine, then it's a very uncomfortable place to be. I mean, ask any out-of-work actor, or grip, or catering person, or, you know what I mean? And so we were living in a really great neighborhood, but on a little postage stamp sized lot. And we had 3 rambunctious boys. And we thought, you know what? It might be time to get out of Dodge and raise these guys somewhere else. We were able to change our lives at that point. I had come off a long series, and Arthur, my husband, was, rethinking his career path. And we came up to the Seattle area and we fell in love. And our boys have all been raised up here. And as a result, show business is not the first thing on their minds. And I'm glad about that. And they're very interesting guys. Their interests are so varied, and my friends up here are not show business friends. And I love that. I feel like, for me, when we moved here, it was like being in the witness protection program because we knew nobody. And there were in the neighborhood, apparently they've since told me this, that there was a lot of buzz about someone from Greece coming in, Greece, the movie, not the country. And,
Yes.
and so a lot of pies showed up at the door when we first moved here. And I thought, wow, you know, this is like the friendliest place on earth. But apparently it was because they all wanted to see what a pink lady looks like.
That's great. But best decision you made, I guess.
Best decision I ever made. I love it here. I love the
awesome.
I love the Northwest.
That's awesome. Well, let's go to television and your appearance on Welcome Back Kotter. What do you remember? What do you remember? And did you get to work with John at that point?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God, I was so crushed. Oh my God. I was like, oh my God. Well, you know, everyone was watching Welcome Back Kotter in those days, including me. And I was, I don't know, 18 or something. And it was my first job. And, you know, and my part was that I asked Barbarino to the dance, but he turns me down. Barbarino was John Travolta.
Yeah, Vinny.
And
Vinny
I end up
Barbarino.
Right, Vinny Barbarino. But I end up going with Horshack, which, you know, was not how I wanted it all to turn out, but really was like, you know, the story of the career that was to come.
I loved that show. I went to school with John's nephew. I went to see John and Isaac Washington. Is that his name? I think it was one of the characters. I can't think of who. That might have been the character. I can't think if it was the actor's name. They like, you know, they at that time it was so big. They were like doing appearances at like theaters.
Yeah. It was huge. It was
huge.
So it was a great first gig to have, but terrifying. And then, you know, when I did Grease, and John and I had the same manager by then, so we, you know, I was pretty familiar with him. But still, if I were to see him today, I would still get tongue-tied around him. He has a thing. Oh my God, it's a thing. You know, some people got it. He got it.
He got it.
He got it.
Well, we're gonna get to that movie, but that's wild. That is really I love hearing that. And then in 1978, you debut as Elaine Dallas Lefkowitz on Soap.
Yeah.
And in the same year, Pink Lady Marty Marachino. I mean, taught a wealth of riches in the same year. I mean, did you realize it was like that wealth of riches?
No, not at all. I wish I could go back and just whisper in my own ear, don't miss this. You know, this is big, because I was really, you know, in those days, very immature for my age, partying a lot. I was like the little steel ball inside what's it called? The arcade game, the pinball, reacting to everything, you know, and not really present. I mean, I did the work, and you know, it was exciting and it was fun, but it's like, and I don't know if this correlation will make sense. It's like, I wish now at this age, I would have appreciated my grandparents and gone back and said, what happened? How did you get here? Who are you? How did you feel? Why did that happen? You know, but I was such a self-obsessed, self-involved little narcissistic actress in those days that all of the stuff, the finer detail and richness of those moments went right by me.
I think that's a lot of kids, though. I do.
Yeah, I think maybe that's true. But I do wish I had known to just take it in then, including the Tony Award, including doing Ordinary People, you know, which was a one-day gig, you know, but there I was working with Robert freaking Redford, and, you know, and lost in my own head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, the gift of retrospect is that I can look back and say, wow, how extraordinary, but also,
But what a lesson though for people watching. Seriously, I mean, first of all, have grandparents, ask them questions, write down stories. There's such rich story in our history that I've learned that as well over the years, and think, the things we could, things we would learn. A former colleague and friend, Alina, told me that I should not frighten you by telling you that she probably could recite every one of Elaine's lines from Soap.
Not me, but
do you get that a lot?
No.
What stands out in your mind for Soap?
From Soap?
And what were you going to say? She's like what?
Well, she's like a stalker, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
No. What stands out in my mind from Soap? I don't have a line or a scene that stands out in my mind. What stands out in my mind was getting to say Susan Harris's dialogue, which was for the first time for me as an actor. I felt like it had just been, like it was just indigenous to my being, like, oh, this is my language, now this is my rhythm, this is my humor, I can be, this other thing. And, because I grew up in Malibu, there was this, I had this duality. One was, will the surfer boys pay attention to me? And the other was, I'm a little New York Jew, And so I'm on Soap, and suddenly I'm a little New York Jew, and it's fun, and it's really good, and I'm embracing this identity and getting paid for it, and working with all these incredible actors on a show that I'm like a huge fan of. And I just felt really lucky, and I really, for the first time, found a love of acting. Oh, this is what it feels like, to get the laugh, because Soap was filmed in front of a live audience, and the material was so rich, and and when I nail a joke, it was like, whoa,
It is so funny, and Danny and Elaine were so popular, and as one of our fans, they were, and one of our fans just said he was a great, Ted was such a great scene partner for you. And I just rewatched in preparation your death scene, which was,
poor Elaine.
Poor Elaine.
Yeah.
What do you recall about working with Ted and that pairing? Did you feel that it was popular at the time?
No. Again, just show. I think with all shows, you don't know what the outcome of it's going to be. I mean, I knew I was walking into a hit show, but I didn't know that it would make that anything I did would make an impression. I loved working with Ted. I still know Ted, and I still love Ted, and his wife Nina Wass. I do remember that death scene. I was really scared that I wasn't going to be able to hit the vulnerability, that I hadn't done serious work at that point, and that I was worried that when the serious scene came up, that I wasn't going to be able to come up with the goods. I remember that.
But you did. I mean, and there's tributes, on YouTube to Danny and Elaine, to music.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's a whole world I don't know about. Well, tell me about that.
Yeah, you have to. I'll send them your way. Well, speaking of, you hadn't worked with a lot of people, you say, at that point, but you have worked, now with some incredibly talented actors in your career. Do you think, is there one person who you think you might have learned the most from working opposite them?
Well, I've learned different things from different people. When I did Empty Nest with Richard Mulligan.
And Soap with Richard Mulligan.
But particularly in Empty Nest, where it was just us guys. Richard really taught me about being professional. to leave all the shit outside the stage door in that case, and to come in prepared. I mean, nobody was more prepared or more gracious an actor than Richard Mulligans. He was extraordinary to work with, and very disciplined and very loving.
Like a father, I would, you know.
Like the kind of father you would like to have, yes, in a sense. But it was really about the work. It wasn't about, you know, we didn't discuss our personal lives, you know. And he loved to work. He had a passion for acting that was, you know, very, very cool. So, you know, I think Richard had a big influence on me. I think, well, Walter Matthau, you know, working with Walter Matthau was, you know, I think I was so nervous working through that whole movie of I Ought to Be in Pictures that most of what I learned from Walter, I think I've learned in retrospect, of his a bit.
Looking back, you mean, or?
Yes. Yeah, I think I can reflect on it and go, wow, I really, you know, saw how loose he could be, and I wasn't loose. You know, I was so rigid in front of the camera, much more rigid than I had been on stage, where I had felt very loose. But he was so loose in front of camera, he could make things up on the spot. You know, he was so confident, such a confident, marvelous, funny actor. There's been just so many people. You know, Brenda Vaccaro taught me about being, once she said, when you don't know what to do, just say the lines really fast. That'll do it.
That's great.
When you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, I just, you know, I'm blessed. I've worked with so many amazing actors. Yeah.
Well, you know, like I said at the start, Grease is my favorite, you know, musical. My parents took me in 1978. I will watch it any day of the week it is on. Like you said, I mean, John and Olivia, the Pink Ladies, you know, the what are they called? The T-Birds, right?
Can you see that? I'm holding this up for you.
That picture is just phenomenal. I mean,
yeah.
You know, here we are, you know, 43 years after that film's release, and people still, you know, the love for that. I mean, you know, do you have the same love for that?
More now than after it came out. Yeah, more now because I still enjoy watching it, which blows my mind. You know, I look at it now and I look at my character, I go, oh, she's so adorable. You know, like it's not me at all. Like, oh, look at her. Look what she did there, you know. And yeah, I think it's great. You know, I have I get to have a gaggle of Pink Ladies at my house every Halloween. There's a knock on the door, and sure enough, in my neighborhood, the next crop of 12-year-olds will be standing there singing me Summer Nights in their Pink Lady outfits. It's, you know, yeah, it's so
That's
cool,
gotta be
mind
blowing.
Yeah, it is. It is mind blowing. Yeah, it never dies. It just keeps gathering steam, you know. So,
but I mean, Marty was such, you know, an iconic character. I mean, you know, not everybody had, you know, Rizzo and you know, there's you guys really left your mark.
Wasn't Stockard amazing? I just see, Stockard's another person who had a big influence on me, because that was my first movie, and she was in her own movie on Grease. You know, there was Grease and there was Stockard, and Stockard was like, you know, her Rizzo, I mean, it's so weighty, you know what I mean? And we were kind of like little flex balls orbiting her weight. And I was always like, you know, wow, you know, so knocked out by the internal work she was doing, even as we were doing this light musical, Rizzo was so real for her. When she sings Worst Things, I mean, it just kills me every time.
Kills me every time. So Olivia and you, first movies?
Was my first film.
And I think Olivia's too, right? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if it was her first.
I don't know that she did. I mean, wow.
She sure was confident. I mean, can you imagine?
Well, the two of them were catapulted. Yeah. You all were. I mean, you were all pretty much catapulted at that.
I don't think period. So. They were, but I don't think we were not. We were all, we catapulted kind of gradually over the years, but they were catapulted from that movie. And also remember, Grease opened right after Saturday Night Fever opened. Mm. When we shot Grease, we all went to a screening with John of Saturday Night Fever. It hadn't come out yet. And we were all like, oh, fuck me. Come on. Am I allowed to say that here? I mean, but that's really like, oh my God. Boy, are we. I mean, I got chills just talking about it. Seeing that for the first time in the room with him.
I can't even imagine.
And then it was like, well, we knew, And, but I remember seeing Olivia and John's first rehearsal dance together. And like, it was jaw-dropping. Their chemistry was just like that. She could dance like him, and that he could dance like that. I mean, it was incredible.
I mean, incredible. Being a young person and being on that set must have just been and it's your first on top of that.
Yeah.
But just the whole experience of watching all of it.
Yeah.
Going on around you and you getting to participate.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Very intimidating.
Did you?
Again, very intimidating.
How was dancing for you?
Oh, I'm a terrible dancer. I wouldn't go so far as to say I have 2 left feet, but I can do almost any move if I'm standing still. So I can do a lot of this, and a lot of that. But they quickly found out that I could not keep up with the choreography. And so I'm often hidden behind a group of really good dancers. Yeah, the dancing was not really happening for me.
I love it.
But I worked every part of my body with Marty, because my whole take on Marty was that Marty was always emulating her take on Marilyn Monroe. So everything was pouty and bosoms and shoulders and shimmying, the way she thought sexy was in those days. Yeah.
Oh, and she was sexy. I mean, that's great. One of our fans just said, I can still do the hand jive.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. Totally, me too. Looking back today, what is the best part of being a Pink Lady?
Well, okay, this is going to be a crazy answer. I teach improvisation and acting at a women's prison in a town near us here. Big prison, minimum, medium, maximum prison, 1,000 women. And I get to teach in the high school 21 program, which is a program for women who have never gotten a high school diploma, who want to get a high school diploma. So my class is an accredited extracurricular class, elective. So when I go in to teach, the first thing I do is tell them I was a Pink Lady in Grease, because it completely intimidates them. And I need that group of women intimidated for me to stay in the room.
Best story ever.
And with the guard down the hall. So that's, the best thing about being a Pink Lady is I've got cred.
Street cred in a women's prison. How did you start doing that? That's amazing.
The real story of how I started doing that, and not to get too serious, Well, it's pretty serious. My oldest son was killed 4.5 years ago in a car accident.
I am very sorry
And
about that.
thank you. As you can imagine, we were all decimated. And I knew that in order for me to start functioning again, I needed to put myself someplace where I could be of service somehow, because I just felt like I couldn't relate to any normal people on any normal level. And I had always had in the back of my mind, going in to do work in a correctional institute. I thought that would be really interesting. And the idea of working with people who were suffering hardship felt to me like a place where I could go anonymously in terms of my personal life and be comfortable. And so about 3 months after my son's accident, I began teaching in this facility. And for 2 hours during class time, I was free from grief. I was in my element. I was laughing. They were laughing. And I didn't know why they were in prison. They didn't know why the hell this actress from Greece was teaching them acting. But it was my bridge back to being functional and alive. And I up until COVID, for 3 years, I went every week. And I miss it. I haven't been able to go in since COVID. I miss it, but it was my bridge back to being
amazing
okay.
that you could find something like that to help. And what do you think he would have said about you doing that?
Oh, well, Dashiell was a really good improviser, so he would have. I mean, I would have been bringing him in every week to play because he was brilliant at it. So yeah.
Then that's a lovely tribute then to him. Back to the Pink Ladies. Have you heard that they're doing a prequel?
Yeah, so I hear. I mean, no one's called me except.
Well, we need to make that happen.
People are saying, "Have you heard? Have you heard?" It'll be. I'm all for it. I mean, the world should be painted pink as far as I'm concerned. You can never have enough pink ladies. And, let's see who they cast. It'll be fascinating. I didn't watch the Grease. I didn't see the Grease live thing, although I heard it was good.
I did watch it, but I'm an original. I've never seen Grease 2. Or if I did, I saw bits and pieces and just turned it off because it doesn't live up to the original for me. The original, it just was magic, Did
you ever see it on Broadway? You were probably too young. If you saw the movie, I saw Barry Bostwick do it on Broadway. He was the original Zuko. It may have been off Broadway. Yeah,
I might have seen Rosie O'Donnell do it.
Yeah,
I might have. I'm having a little flashback to that.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Broadway, I mean, 1978 and Soap and Grease, and then 1980 your on Broadway debut.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were frightened, on Soap, I can only imagine. Were you petrified making your debut on Broadway?
Stage was the most comfortable place for me. Still, that's the medium I'm most comfortable on. Something happened for me on stage where I freed up. I could live moment to moment as an actor on stage in a way that, in my opinion about myself, I haven't been able to do as successfully as an actor in film and television. Maybe television sitcom because we have an audience and it feels very theatrical when there's that back and forth energy. But I was nervous, but not in the same way once I was doing that play and on stage. Again, Neil Simon's writing, much like Susan Harris's writing, tapped into a place that was native to me. And so I never felt any distance from the material. I felt like I was speaking out of, mishpucha. It was family to me.
Right.
And I had been cueing my mother on Neil Simon scripts from the time I could read. So that timing was baked in.
Wow.
Seriously. So there was something very freeing about the experience of doing Ida Being Pictures on stage that, in my opinion, about myself, I never captured on film in that part.
Would you like to get back on stage?
No, because the pressure, the hours, the pressure of keeping all the lines. I lead this very comfy little life now that doesn't involve me getting too nervous about anything. And I lived so long with stage fright, you know, nerves about camera, nerves about how I looked, nerves about the auditions and rejections. And to go back into that, for me, it would be as bad for me as going back to high school at this point.
Oh, no, thank you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you know,
I totally get you with that.
I just like to get up and water my garden, ride my horses. I'm a big horseback rider. You know, hang out with my husband, who I'm kind of crazy about after 25 years, and I
love that.
And write. You know, I write a watercolor. I'm really.
Is there another book in you? Is there another book in you?
Good. I think so. You know, I'm working on some stuff, and I think so. You know, we'll see. Again, we'll see if there may be another book in me. Is there someone else who will publish it, like my fabulous publisher now? I hope so.
I said earlier, asking about who you would cast as Jackie Gold. Do you see it as a possible screenplay down the road?
I never have envisioned that, but everybody who reads it says it to me. Everybody. So, from their lips to God's ears, I'd be very happy to turn it over to somebody and say,
well, you
take it, have fun.
Have fun with it. Well, you said, could you cuss here, as you did earlier? And like I said, your mother cursed and said, it's effing great. So the book is fantastic. We have to talk about Empty Nest. I know a lot of fans were asking, because you did, I think, an episode of Family with Christy McNichol. Were you guys friends before you played sisters?
Well, we were acquaintances who liked each other a lot. I mean, I had a great experience with her on Family. She was so darling. And, that was at the height of when her character Buddy, I mean, everybody, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, everybody, boyfriends, girlfriends, everybody wanted Buddy,
Yeah, I loved Buddy.
Yeah, Buddy was, everybody's favorite. And so when she came on to Empty Nest, it was very interesting because she'd never really done sitcom before. And sitcom is its own medium. And it took her a little while to ramp up to it. And then once she got it, boy, she just killed. I had so much fun acting with her. I mean, we were such great foils for each other. We, as actresses in our roles, drove each other crazy. And as actresses, friends, we were crazy for each other.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she gives a blurb on my book. She read the book early on and gave me a really nice blurb.
I love that. I was going to ask if you kept in touch, so I assume
we keep
so.
In touch. Oh yeah. I love her so much. Yeah, what a talent.
That's great. Well, Sydney was asking what your recollections from your 2 appearances on the Golden Girls, but also another fan, Michael, said that I have to ask you that you have a hilarious B. Arthur story.
Well, yeah. Well, B was set in her ways. She was very commanding and very set in her ways, and everybody knew that B would not allow you to chew gum on the set of Golden Girls, which in my rebellious nature made me absolutely need to see what would happen if I chewed gum on the set of Golden Girls. And boy, she went really ballistic on me. But it was fun for me because it was like, oh, come on. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, they told me that would happen. And now B. Arthur is yelling at me for chewing gum on the set. So I spit out the gum. And then when she did a crossover onto Empty Nest, I chewed gum again. I have to say purposely. And then when she said, I really wish I'd say, you know what, B? You're on my territory now. So that was our exchange.
I love that.
I was crazy for her. But she was, she was a tough nut. She was a tough nut.
Another, show produced by Paul Junger-Witt and Tony Thomas, who you worked with on
by Susan Harris, yeah.
And Empty Nest, and who you worked with on Golden Girls. Well, did you have a relationship with those men? Like, what were they like? And the creativity. I mean, Well, Susan Harris was the creative engine behind Tony and Paul, and they would have told you the same thing. Gotcha.
Susan was Soap, Susan was Golden Girls, and Susan was Empty Nest. And though she didn't stay on to write Empty Nest, she wrote the pilot for Empty Nest. She didn't stay on but she devised those characters. She invented characters that had longevity, that would constantly play off of each other. And together as a team, Whit Thomas Harris made sure that the tone stayed true to the show, for a long time. On any show, and particularly it was my experience with Empty Nest, it was harder and harder as the years went on to keep the original feeling of the show strong through, various different teams that came in. Some got it, some didn't. Sometimes, Richard and I were often fighting for our characters' true voices against a joke for the sake of a joke, But Susan's a genius. And I was very lucky to be in that with Thomas Harris family.
Yeah. I mean, so many of your shows. Do you remember what was it about Carol that made you want to play that part? Was it part of coming from Susan,
Oh yeah. Well, she hit neuroses so hard on the head in such a funny way. I don't remember any lines from anything I've done except like 3. And one of the lines I remember, this was not actually written by Susan Harris, it was written by an actress, a writer named Susan Beavers, who was in the first grouping of writers on the show. And the line was Carol's, and it was, "My greatest fear is that there's no such thing as PMS, and this is who I really am." And that line defines Carol Weston for me. I mean, it was such a great line, and it was such a great character. I loved playing her. I loved playing her because she was all the parts of me that I had to, go to therapy over and couldn't really express. So I could just I could just, play in that arena. I had such fun working on Empty Nest. I loved David Leisure. He was such a blast, and we're still really close friends today. And then Estelle Getty came on in the last couple of years, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. I had such great talks with her and times in the dressing rooms. Lucky me.
Lucky you. I mean, you really have worked with incredible people, and your mom was on Empty Nest.
Yeah, we didn't have such a good time. Did she tell you?
She did. She said it was weird, because you weren't, Dinah, you were Carol.
It was weird for a lot of reasons. I wouldn't do that again.
But you followed in Mom's footsteps, and tell me how directing entered into your world.
Well, Tony and Paul who you were speaking about earlier, they came to me somewhere in season 5, I think, because I was getting restless and irritable, and I had begun really getting a little combative about the material, and they came to me and they asked me if I wanted to direct. I think it was, originally just to keep me happy and busy. And it was such a relief to me because my natural state is to see overview. And so when I'm on set, I'm already in my head, I'm such a busybody and I have to keep my mouth shut about so many things. So when I'm directing, I'm like, this is my natural state. It's like as a writer now that I can have the overview and I can describe and I can know where everybody is and what they're doing. That's a natural state to me. I am not by nature a myopic focused actor where I'm just concentrating. It's to my detriment as an actor that I can't not take in what's happening here and here and here. So I got to direct, I think I did 6 or 7 episodes of Empty Nest. I can't remember. I loved it. It was fantastic. The crew were so supportive. I will not say who, but there were a couple of cast members not as supportive. That they shall remain nameless. But I had a great time, and I felt very good about it. Then when Empty Nest ended, I thought, well, I'm going to carry this. Well, this is my new career because I love for camera. I love the control booth. I love snapping the shots. I love everything about it. And what I found was that if I was in a circumstance, there were a couple of shows I did where I was very supported by the assistant director and the crew. And if I was in that circumstance, I was safe because my camera training was lacking. I didn't have chops in terms of lenses and dollies and tracking. And I knew what I wanted to see, but I wouldn't know how to get there. So if I had great support, I was fine. If I didn't, I was fucked. And I learned that
makes it difficult.
Very hard.
Yeah.
And I learned that it was also a particularly hard time to be a woman director in television. There were none of us. I mean, there were a couple. And so I wasn't given, if I messed something up, like a shot, that was it. I was off. I mean, it was very tough. I mean, it was very tough and very stressful.
And
my friend Melanie.
Yeah, go on.
My friend Melanie Mayron, who is a very successful television director now, a great, wonderful actress. She directed the first episodes of State of Grace. She has managed to crack it all open and become a viable, working, regularly hired television director. And Melanie is camera-wise. You cannot fault her for anything. But she also has the ability to not take stuff personally. I don't have that. My mother doesn't have it. You know, the criticism as a director made my hackles go up. Melanie doesn't have that. She just hears it like a normal person. You know? So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm probably talking too much, but you know, when you have an hour interview, all this stuff comes out that I would never say otherwise. So I'm probably in a lot of trouble.
No, but you learned, I assume, from the other directors who were directing you on Empty Nest. I mean, it's not like your mother who went to AFI, you know, they asked her and she went to AFI.
I learned on the job.
Yeah.
I learned on the job. You know, my gift is in staging actors and getting the joke played. My gift is in creatively setting up a situation that might not have been on the page that makes the page better. And that I can do, you know, that I do here when I direct, you know, theater in my little town, or I do it in my acting classes that I teach. now I do it on a scale where that's all I have to do. But I don't I don't want to direct television anymore.
I got the message. Dinah Manoff is quite happy in Washington State doing what she's doing. Right?
That's the truth. Yeah.
That's, life you should be,
Yeah.
If you can be, and you don't have to do what you don't want to do, be happy. I mean, that's I think, the best message you could, put out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do what makes you happy.
It feels funny coming out and doing, interviews again. And, I'm so excited about this novel that I'm happy to come out and do it and talk about it. But it does feel like, like a mole coming up out of the ground and seeing the sun again and going, oh no, this is very bright and I'm not sure I want to be here right now. We'll crawl back underneath my covers again. And
that is so funny. Well, one of our fans asked a question, and I just want to ask because I know he has asked me a lot about Adrian Zmed. Do you any memories of working with Adrian?
Did I work with Adrian Zmed?
You did, I believe, on The Check Isn't in the Mail.
What was that? Was that Empty Nest?
Yes. Yeah, that's the episode. Sorry, that was the episode. Yes.
He must have. Oops, I knocked my. He must have been playing Christie's boyfriend because I know he played mine. I do remember the ones who played my boyfriend. Yes, but I knew Adrian. Did this turn off? Hold on a second.
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I knew Adrian through friends and other people. I don't particularly remember working with him on Empty Nest, but I do remember that he was a great guy, and we had a lot of mutual friends and hung out. He was very talented, and I did see him play Zuko in Greece.
Oh, right, yeah, I remember seeing.
Yeah, he was great.
Seeing press about him playing.
Yeah. Our manager, Bob, the late and great Bob Lamond. Bob was John Travolta's manager, and after John became then Adrian was like poised. He was like Bob's next Zuko. He.
One of our fans said he played Carol's first husband.
Who is that?
Adrian.
Adrian played my first husband?
That's what?
No.
Played Carol's first?
It's possible. Let's Google it. I don't think so.
I'm going to look it up. Let's see.
You never know. It's possible, but I think if you Google that, you will find that probably is not true.
Yeah.
Maybe he did.
Hey, it's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
7 years of episodes.
Let me see if I can find it quickly before we go. Gary, it just says Gary. He played Gary. It doesn't say his last name. I'll look it up and see if we're.
Yeah, we need to know. And if you did, I'm so sorry, Adrian. I just,
Hey, it's like we said, it's a long time ago. Before I let you go, thank you so much for doing this. I wish you the best of luck with the book, and everybody pick up a copy of the. Can I
just say that this book can be ordered through Barnes and Noble, through Amazon, or through my website, which is on the screen, DinahManoff.org. And if you like books about Hollywood and show business, you will really like this book.
I mean, when you were describing it, I see it as a movie. It should be a movie. Hey, can we do a quick picture?
Sure.
I'll count us down. 1, 2, 3. Dinah, it's such a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Al, and it was really fun.
Good. You stay well, and I hope.
And easy.
Are you planning to go back to the prison when they allow?
As soon as they'll let me in. Yeah, I miss it. I really, really miss it. It's so vital in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that it must be so vital.
Yeah, it is. And to watch these women, explore these parts of themselves is so thrilling. I can't tell you. It's just amazing. So, yeah.
Thank you. Stay well.
Okay. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today. Big thank you to Dinah Manoff for joining me. Please pick up a copy of her book, The Real Hollywood Story of Jackie Gold. You can buy it where all books are sold. And like she said, it's on her website. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, you can do so down below. Turn on the notifications so you get reminded of all upcoming shows. Have a great afternoon, everybody. And I will see you tonight, 8 p.m. Michael Fairman and I will be here live in the locker room.